Quest to Succeed, Chapter 37. Jay was born in a village where most people knew each other. They tried to assist one another whenever it was possible and in whatever way they could support their neighbors and acquaintances. He was convinced that small communities were the right basis for a good society where an individual could flourish and realize his potential and could contribute to its progress. He was not against big cities where most jobs existed or jobs could be created. People flocked to cities in order to seek employment, education, and to improve their lives. Several cities had, however, developed slums where life was miserable. It was better to live in villages with less amenities but good natural and social environment than to face conundrum in slums. People maintained that big cities in India depended on slums. The rich were rich only because they took advantage of other people's poverty and made them work at lower wages. He believed in reviving cottage industries in Indian villages where more avocations could be provided. With changes in social and economic structure in the 19th century, the harmony between the agriculture and trade was subverted. With the result, the foundations of village and village life deteriorated. In the Middle Ages, villages were richer than cities. He wanted all education to be imparted in Indian languages, which were very flexible and rich. Indians, especially the middle-class people, felt proud speaking in English language, even at home and talking to their family members, including young children. Unfortunately, some middle-class parents had been sending their offsprings to English medium schools. This divided the society and created apartheid within the camaraderie. It also hampered mental growth of youngsters, who could easily learn subjects in their own vernacular and express themselves better in local terminology than in a foreign language. After migrating from India, Jay did not return to live there permanently. He, however, kept visiting his country of origin and went on holiday to various places and states. He could not visit India every year but went there whenever it was feasible. He continued to write to his relatives and received correspondence from them. His writings, books, and articles reflected his thoughts on India and concerns about Indians overseas. Socially and physically, he became a part of the British society and adopted the British way of living. Still, his thoughts were based on Indian philosophy and culture. Of course, when a person lived in a country, he was influenced by the laws and customs of his adopted nation. His food habits also changed. From time to time, he celebrated the starting date of his new life in Britain. He reflected over the period and the changes that have taken place, the problems he encountered, and his accomplishments, especially in education and employment. He also brooded over his sufferings and losses, how he was rebuffed and looked down upon, discouraged from undertaking constructive work he would have enjoyed doing. Yet he struggled on and continued with his own pursuit. He was not prepared to accept negative attitudes and intrigues or the blueprints of others. He altered his tactics and hoped for better times in the future. He observed that he was successful in several fields, be it honor, academic accomplishment, or in other sectors of the economy and finance. He had a cheerful home and a happy family. His family members were not visionaries. Neither did they live an unrealistic life. They had a comfortable and dynamic sustenance. People had asked him about the partition of India. He was incredibly young when the partition took place. Now he was keen to discover the reasons and the circumstances which led to the country's division on religious grounds. He set out to ascertain the real causes of partition and whether it was the separation of areas of India to form a new country or a unification of princely states and other parts of the nation. It was both. Writers from different countries have written according to their thinking and experiences. The British authors had maintained that the two major religious groups could not reconcile and were fighting for their rights and privileges in India. The Pakistani writers have argued that Muslims would be in minority against the Hindu majority in an undivided India. In a democracy where majority rule prevailed, the minorities could be suppressed and would be unable to express themselves, live freely, and would not be able to practice their religion independently. The Indian writers have written that after the Second World War, the Muslim League failed to work with the Indian National Congress. In late 1940s, violence flared up in various parts of the country. The Muslim League started a day of action which became uncontrollable. The minorities in the western states and eastern states of the country became worried about their safety and security. They therefore started to move to places and states where their religious majority lived. In the 21st century, an experienced Indian politician, Jaswant Singh, who had been India's foreign minister and finance minister, published a book, Jinnah, India's Independence and the Partition. This title brought uproar in the Bharatiya Janata Party and the Sangh Parivar. Jaswant Singh was expelled from the party, even though he was a senior leader and a minister in the Atal Bihari Vajpayee administration in the 1990s. It was suggested that Singh had praised Jinnah in his book, while Nehru and Patel had been criticized. They also stressed that Jinnah was responsible for the partition of India in 1947, which dislocated 12 million people. Over 1 million people were killed in communal violence. In expelling Jaswant Singh from the Bharatiya Janata Party, nonetheless, the party leaders behaved like village feudal elders and not as a modern political party. In Jay's opinion, they were like the Lohanas, a particular group of local Hindus in Gujarat, some 100 years earlier. He argued that Muhammad Ali Jinnah's grandfather, Premji Bhai Takar, had started the trading business of fish within the coastal town of Veraval to support his family. His business, however, clashed with the ethics of the Lohana Hindu community to which he belonged. They therefore ostracized him from their fraternity. Premji Bhai Thakar, Jinnah's grandfather, earned a great deal of money in fish business. He attempted to rejoin his community. He also discontinued the fish trade. Still, the local Hindu group and their leaders rejected his request. They did not allow him to become a member of the association of people in the area. Premji Bhai's son, Punjan Lal Takar, was infuriated at the humiliation of his father. He left the community and he gave up the Hindu religion. He adopted Islam as his new religion, whose leaders embraced him with open arms. He changed his sons' names, including that of Muhammad Ali. He also dropped his surname Thakar. Muhammad Ali's father, Punjan Lal, was a slim man. People called him Jino, which in Gujarati meant skinny. Muhammad Ali decided to change his family name to Jinnah, children of Jino, and adopted his father's nickname as his surname. He aimed to be associated with his father's nickname. The other members of Muhammad Ali's family also became Jinnah. His sister was known as Fatima Jinnah. Jay argued that if the Hindu community had permitted Premji Bhai Takar to rejoin the community, Punjan Lal would not have been exasperated. Muhammad Ali would have remained a Hindu. He would not have insisted on a separate state for India's Muslims. For Jay, a fundamental question remained whether a single person was responsible for the creation of the state of Pakistan, and therefore partition of India became inevitable. He expressed the view that no single person could be held responsible for a historical phenomenon. There were several parties in India's freedom struggle. The British imperialists wanted to hold on to power as long as they could. When it had become impossible to rule India by force, the British government, led by Clement Attlee, decided to relinquish the country in 1947. The British Conservative Party, led by Winston Churchill, and quite a few retired ICS officials who were members of the India Defence League, however, wanted to continue to control India and remain in power. The British rulers created mischief and disorder in the country with the belief that the Indian leaders would ask them to stay on to maintain peace and to continue their administration. In June 1947, Gandhi offered Jinnah the prime ministership of the United India, and he agreed for the sake of avoiding the partition. It was, however, Jawaharlal Nehru who made a political justification and expressed the view that the Muslim League, of which Jinnah was the leader, was a minority party in the Legislative Assembly. He questioned, how could its leader become prime minister when the Congress party was the majority party? Nehru himself wanted to become the first prime minister of free India. The same month, the Indian leaders, including the Viceroy, went to London to draw up a final settlement with the British government. During this period, Mountbatten, who was the Viceroy of India, went to see Churchill, who asked him to keep a part of India under British control. Mountbatten promised to fulfill his wishes. Despite this promise, Mountbatten often insisted and wrangled that he could have avoided the partition of India if he had known that Jinnah was suffering from cancer and would die within a year. The British government and the Indian leaders decided to create the state of Pakistan with Baluchistan, Sindh, West Punjab, and northwest frontier in the west, and East Bengal in the east of the nation. At that time, all the governors of these provinces were British, who created fear among the people. Consequently, disturbances flared up. The British civil administration and the army refused to stop the violence. People of different communities started to move from one part of the country to another part, depending on their religion. The two communities, who had lived peacefully for centuries, were killing each other. It took time to stop the carnage. Initially, it was thought that the partition would be temporary and the two sides would come together when sanity returned. Because of geopolitical reasons and short-sightedness on the part of both, the Indian and Pakistani leaders, partition became bitter and permanent. The two power blocs led by the United States and the Soviet Union created their areas of influence. The United States and Britain indirectly controlled Pakistan. They provided defense and financial support, which was often used against India. Indians also did not seriously attempt to improve relations with its neighbor and the new state. Surprisingly, in course of time, India's relations with the United States and Britain improved, but her affinity with Pakistan did not become cordial, when they should have been better because of geographical, historical, and cultural reasons. Jay thought and hoped that Jaswant Singh, through his book, might have attempted to recognize the role of Jinnah and the Muslim League in the independence movement. It nevertheless blew onto his face, because a substantial number of people blamed Jinnah and his intransigence not to join the Indian Constituent Assembly in 1946. The Muslim League, nevertheless, joined the interim government led by Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, with Liaquat Ali Khan of the Muslim League as the Deputy Prime Minister. Indeed, Liaquat Ali wanted to prolong this administration because there was no central government for the new state of Pakistan. It was essential to have a working regime in place before the new state could start to function and implement policies. If that situation existed, the carnage of killings and the unplanned movement of population could have been avoided. It had, however, been the policy of the British imperialism to divide the country. The division of a nation left behind many problems, as it had been experienced in the partition of Ireland, Palestine, and indeed India. No single person or party could be held responsible for the consequences of history and political judgments.